What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, Episode 6. Our Danny lies over the ocean. This is the Battle Mallet Podcast, a podcast delving into the minds of four busy gamers, our annual trip to Nova, the games that we love, and balancing our lives with those games. I'm Jared.
I'm Trace.
I'm Jason.
And once again, we find ourselves one Danny short of a full podcast, and that just so happens because our homeboy is, I think, actively on an airplane over the Atlantic Ocean right now, at the time of recording, on the way to his honeymoon.
This is the balancing life with those games part.
That's right. Yep.
No, he's not on his honeymoon. He's making the pilgrimage to GW. That's really where he's going.
Yeah. He's making his pilgrimage to GW and happens to be bringing his newlywed wife along with him. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly how that's going down.
Don't be fooled though, folks, because she also has a little bit of a nerdy side too, and she actually said that she was interested to go see all the dioramas and stuff there. So
well, and she's painted a Silver Tower figure.
She has.
She did a bang out job on that thing too.
Yeah, she had a lot of fun playing Silver Tower with us. Not 3 years ago now.
Yeah, probably.
3? Good Lord.
Yeah, where does the time go?
But we attended his wedding over the weekend, and I was super excited to get to spend time outside of gaming with you guys, and
it was fun.
We were super happy for Danny and happy that we were involved in that.
Happy to be a part of it. His and Sarah's special day.
Yes. Congratulations again, Danny.
Yep.
I don't know how you found her, but we're glad you did.
Yep. And so, since he's not here, I think you guys know where this is going to go. I can imagine we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about Underworlds than we normally would. We had a recent tournament that we went to, and I've gotten a handful of games in with the Yltharis, so we'll probably talk about that. And then I know Trace has been doing some deck crafting on Thundrik's Profiteers, the Squally Pirates.
I've been raiding the vaults and looking for cards.
Yar. So we'll dig into that. We'll go over the tournament and talk about kind of what we're thinking with Underworlds, what we're playing and stuff like that. And then I think we're going to spend a little time. So the Australian Championship. There was a studio preview.
Yeah.
Which I think caught us all off guard.
Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
So, but we're excited because I don't know. There's some content in there that certain some curiosity.
What?
May have been stoked.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Sure you don't.
Where's Danny to reel us in? It's going to be another lawn episode.
Yeah.
Sure seems like you're less Warcry curious and more Warcry committed.
Oh!
We'll see.
I don't know.
So before we dive into all that, what's everybody been up to? Trace?
I've been doing a lot of painting, actually. Went through and I think on the last episode I talked a little bit about how I'd done some base coats for Jared for part of the doubles list that we had done, doing some skin tones and stuff. I've since then painted, been painting a lot of Beastmen. Got all the bases that at least I have together and painted for the Realm of Metal, which is what we decided to base our army out of. Jared and I kind of talked back and forth about techniques that we were going to apply to that, and just using some of the nice tutorials that GW puts out for that I normally do. So bases were based off of the Duncan. Actually, was it Peachy? It was Peachy that talks about the Realm of Metal, and then Jared actually had never really used Nihilite Oxide before, and so he was just like, I just went and watched the tutorial that Duncan did when the paints first came out and just doused the entire base in Nihilite Oxide and wiped it off with a paper towel, and it turned out great. And I was like, well, I guess I need to do that now too. Yeah,
but it did turn out great.
They do. It's really cool because it adds this really aged effect to the bases that you can still kind of scrub some off to where you can still get some of the shiny bits to pop out, but they looked really good. And then I also got some tufts in from Gamer Grass that are kind of a teal and blue color to kind of make them look more supernatural. And those really pop off the base really nice because they're a nice complementary color to all the warm tones that we have in the bases. So I'm excited to get those done. But what I've spent a large part of my time on the past week or so is getting my Underworlds warbands up to speed for Nova, and involved with that is a certain display board that I will at some point put up on the Facebook page. I'm not going to put it up just yet, but it's turning out really nice.
You should do some like rumor engine style, like super zoomed in pictures.
I could do that. That would be fun, and make them all black and white. Yep. But you guys will see that eventually. I'm really proud of the where that's going.
Yeah, it looks great, man. I love what you've got put together so far.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Jason.
I was waiting for that. But I've really put a lot of thought into my color palette, what I wanted the diorama to look like and what I wanted the actual warband to look like, and I think they're really going to pop. And I'm kind of stopped on the diorama itself right now, just to see where the warband falls and what I need to do. If I can bring the details up a little bit on the display base, then I will. But for right now, I'm kind of happy with where it's at. But that's kind of it in a nutshell for me. Jason, what you been doing?
Nothing.
Did you finally get all of your suppressors? Are they all fixed?
They're not fixed. So
sorry.
No,
man, not. I was trying to give you a win there, man. My bad.
No, I mean, really, for me, work has definitely picked up, so I haven't been focusing a ton on hobby. And really, like with Underworlds being my number one game, the deck builder update kind of halts me there. So I don't really start tinkering until I can get into that deck builder and start playing with the cards. Because the way I build a deck is I select everything. So I'll end up with like an objective deck that's like 20, 25 objectives. And then I make decisions from there. I have a bunch of ploys. Yeah. Right. And then I kind of narrow it down that way. So those not being updated right away has definitely slowed down my hobby progress because I was waiting. But some things I have gotten done, like I laid out I put up my spray booth. So that, I posted a picture of that. Yeah. So I've definitely repositioned and ready to hobby commit again from the painting standpoint. So the spray booth's up, the paints are out, that's all organized, which takes me some time because there's a lot of stuff that I have. All the warbands are laid out in kind of order of way I want to tackle them, as well as all the Shadow Spear stuff is ready to go. Like I had finished a couple details with the Pop Goes the Monkey stuff. And then I actually started assembling the rest of the Space Marines. So the few things that I had left were some aggressors, the tank, the Redemptor. It's Redemptor.
The Repulsor?
Repulsor. There you go. Look, I can't remember what the name of the tank is anymore.
We need to play more 40K.
Yes, we do.
The Repulsor, some Hellblasters. So just got all of that additional stuff for the army set and ready to go. But no paint yet, and still working on those Godshorn Hunt decks. So, Jared, you?
So, not a lot of actual hobby progress. Like you kind of waiting on the deck builder to be able to kind of theory craft some decks. But
should be painting some corn.
Well, yeah, tell me about it. You're not kidding. I do need to paint some corn. So as far as painting goes, I think I put it up on Facebook. Kind of did a proof of concept for the effect that I'm attempting to get for my Yltharis. So a lot of the most of the stuff that you see online is, they get this like bright, kind of glowy, ghostly effect. And I really want to try to invert that. So like a black, like the models will be like legit black, like Abaddon black, with an inner glow. And I'm going to try and shoot for a purple. And the first test run was close, but not what I wanted. And then I've done another test run, and it's still not what I wanted. But thankfully, I have got a test warband to play around with. So Trace and I just swapped warbands. So he owns 2 sets of the Profiteers, one to play with and one to paint. And I own 2 sets of the Ylthari's Guardians, one to play with and one to paint. And I'm currently doing some proof of concept on my like play models. I haven't even assembled the ones that I'll eventually paint. I just want to get some kind of techniques down. So I think I spent a lot of time. So I don't know if I talked about this, but when I was painting the what are they? The Stormcast Eternals. I was trying to use as large a brush as possible. So I settled on like a number 2 brush, which was perfect because it's big enough to hold enough paint to do base coats, but I can pull a small enough point to do a lot of the detail work. And the reason I did that is because I'm really trying to improve my brush control. Because I knew that eventually it was going to come down to, like when I start wanting to do more detail work. I'm a big fan of doing freehand. I'm not great at it yet. But like being able to do the skull masks on my Anvils of the Helden Hammer, like, having the brush control to be able to pull those straight lines so that it looks like teeth and it's not like a jagged mess. But I think I'm going to have to go down. And I was using a 5-0 brush, and I don't think that that's small enough to get like the tiniest, like the brightest inner glow that I'm going for. So I own a 10-0. So I think that's the next step. And I think I'm also going to have to break down and get the goggles.
Well, and just also, you'll need some jeweler's glasses.
Yeah. I've been trying to avoid those.
Don't avoid them. Just embrace them and just keep moving on.
Oh yeah. Take some pictures. I will. Old man, you.
Yeah.
You'll really appreciate it.
I'm sure I will.
Guys. But at the same time, just don't forget that you can erase what you did.
Yeah.
Well,
that's, we talked about this with the corn, right? Like the fact that the armor is going to be black on the corn means I can do all of the gold first and then cover it with black, right? So because
your skin is going to be black, you can always go back over your top layer with your black.
Right. My problem right now is getting the smallest crevices to look right, and that's what's going to require like the tiny brush, because I think the way that I'm going to have to do this is going to be to go inside out. So go with my like
your brightest color.
Well, no, so in a crevice, right? Mm-hmm. So go with a larger brush with a darker color, and then go with a smaller brush with brighter than that, and then the smallest brush. So basically I get like a wide line, and then a narrow line within that wide line, and then like a pinstripe in the middle of those 3. And it'll be, by the time I do it right, like if I'm really going to go try hard in the paint, it's not going to be 3 lines. Like I'm going to do some blending. So it'll be like 5 lines or something. But I think to get the effect that I want in that inner crevice, like especially in like the smallest creases of like muscles and stuff, I think I'm going to have to do like just the smallest brush that I own with like a little bit of paint and just pull, like a millimeter or 2 line at a time, because that's all the paint that stupid tiny brush is going to hold.
Well, and there's another reason why I sent you that tutorial on that bloodthirster, the glowing bloodthirster, because the way that he approaches that is another way that you can do it.
Yeah. So to go inside out.
Correct.
So start with the brightest base coat and then paint the layers up. Yeah. And I think that's an option, but those like the musculature and the scarring on those models, when you look at them on the GW site, I was looking at them, I'm like, oh, like that detail's super easy to pick out. And then I'm like holding this model, and it's this tiny little spindly,
super small,
tree in it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is tiny. I don't know, I'm gonna do this, but I'm excited to learn and to stretch, because with the Stormcast Eternals, I wasn't stretching painting skill, I was stretching like speed, right? Like, what's the fastest that I can do? Like, what's the simplest technique that I can do quickly
to make it
look good?
Yep.
You know, because that's going to be a whole army, right? Like the goal is you know, if I bought them, like if I buy a box of Liberators, I don't want to take, you know, weeks to paint 5 Liberators, right? Like it would be awesome to get down to where I can take a week and they're done in a week. But like, you know, I've got from now until Nova, right? I got to get this step down. I think I have a good plan for the bark. Like I think that one's going to be a lot simpler because it's going to be more what I'm used to doing. So it's going to be a base coat and then some washes and then blended layers.
Yep.
And then if I can get this technique down the way that I want it, I'd love to do it on the weapons too. So like you can see the models on the website are kind of ghostly ethereal bodies and ghostly ethereal weapons, and I'm going to try and do that the same. But the bark is, you know, it's more natural. Like I've painted Lizardman. It's, you know, getting the textures and stuff there is, I think it's going to be a little hard. Yeah, I think it's going to be a little easier. It's not going to require the same. And also like the light study on that is a lot easier to do, right? When you're not inverting your light source, it matters. So I'm excited about like the stretch that this is going to require. But anyway, so I mean that's what I've been working on, and I haven't touched a brush probably in 4 or 5 days, and I need to get back into it. But I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I think you should try another one that you kind of work from your brightest color all the way out to your darkest color.
Okay. Yeah,
and
I think it's worth trying.
And don't be afraid to mix some of your paints along the way, because the thing to remember is like with your contrast, like you're going to try and push all the way to black. I don't know that I would go all the way to black. Like I would go to like super, super dark purple, because I know that you're trying to like push to purple. Right. But there's some really, really dark purples that are going to look black when you have them next to that really, really bright undercoat. Yeah. So just experiment with that. Because I think you'll be pleased. Like obviously the black is going to be your highest point of contrast. Right. But to still maintain that color that you're going to want, I think you'll be happy with a super dark purple.
Yeah. So are you saying the most important thing in life is contrast?
Oh, well played. Well played.
Life.
So, Jason, you wanna cue the audience in for those that don't know. What are you referencing there, Jason?
So there was that teaser a few months ago from the Warhammer community team about 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shelves of Grey.
Oh yeah, 50. The movie is 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Correct. Shelves of Grey. Then there was another teaser with kind of a Matrix parody this week, or this past week. There was the Conan the Barbarian type of...
But it was Duncan the Barbarian.
Yeah, Duncan the Barbarian, where they're referencing their next innovation from some sort of painting, which we theorized a few episodes ago, from paintbrushes to airbrushes to cans of paint. We don't know what it is, but we know it has to do with contrast.
And it'll be up for demo at Warhammer Fest this weekend.
Yep. So we'll figure it out. All the information about it.
We'll figure it out this weekend.
So. One of the things that's been speculated is that it's actually like a self-shading paint. So kind of like the Nighthaunt paint that they released. I think that might have been a test, but just different shades of that. So that would be interesting to see. But to paint your models, to see them displayed before you, and to hear the adulation of your peers is definitely the best in life.
That is what is best in life.
There you go. And if you haven't checked out those videos, please go watch them.
Production awesome. Quality on those has been amazing. So, well, thanks for playing the part of Danny and roping us in there, Jason. So why don't we take a break here, and then we'll jump into our cracked glass segment. So we'll talk about the tournament that we just did and kind of our thoughts on actually having played the new warbands.
Welcome back. We're going to jump into our cracked glass session here tonight. Once again, it's unchained because it's just the three of us. So I'm sure this will be real quick, short, and sweet. But we have lots to talk about. We, all three of us, both myself, Trace, and Jared, attended a tournament a few Tuesdays ago at our local shop, Game Theory, here in Raleigh. And this tournament was a little bit different. It was, a single skirmish event, so best of one, but it was limited format. So the organizer, Britt, did a really good job at trying to invite new players out and giving them an approachable format to get in. The format is you can bring any warband you like with the cards from that warband. And then the only universals you can build your deck from are cards from the Night Vault or Shadespire starter set, Echoes of Glory, and the Leader cards. So very limited format. Saw a lot of great things. But we're going to give you a little recap on that. So we'll start with Trace. Trace, what warband did you take to this tournament?
Well, I hadn't had a lot of chance to play here recently, so I went with kind of what I had been playing. So I brought Mollog's Mob, and in my Mollog's Mob deck, I had a lot of the things that kind of it made it a very interesting format for us, because a lot of the things that you normally would just throw into a Mollog's Mob deck aren't exactly available. So my objectives were Conquest, Denial, Shining Example, Slayer, Demolished, Easy Pickings, Feeding Frenzy, Got Them, Brute Force, Martyred, Opening Gambit, and Strong Start. So I had kind of it was still a score immediately heavy deck, but I tried to just do some things that were a little bit unconventional. My whole goal for that objective deck was to try and get you grouped up around me, and score things like Got Them, which Got Them, for those who don't know, is score this immediately at the beginning of your activation if there are 3 or more enemy fighters adjacent to a friendly Mollog. So my whole goal was to try and get you in and around me so that I could start swinging around with a bunch of different, multiple attacks. Was it the most aggressive and the most optimized deck? No, but this was more of a friendly all-comer tournament, so I tried to make sure that my deck reflected that a little bit less cutthroat. Played 3 really good games. My first game was against one of our new players in the area. His name's Jeffrey, and he played his Night Haunt. And Jeffrey had never really played against Mollog's Mob before, and so, as we all know, the first time you fight Mollog, it's kind of a intimidating thing. You don't really know what to do. Either you try and throw everything at Mollog and he swats you like a fly, or you have some successful attacks and you end up bringing him down. It just depends. It depends on the tactics used, but Jeffrey made a really good game of it. Had a couple whiffs that kind of went in his favor, and I ended up winning it, but I think I won at 11 to 6 or something like that.
Yep.
Something to that effect, because I think Jared and I had the same glory differential in our first 2 games, which is why we got paired up in the second round. A game that I should have won. But Lady Luck sometimes will just turn her eye away from you, and I had stacked up quite a few attack dice against Jared's last fighter, and rolled 4 supports and 1 success, and Jared proceeded to block that one, block the next one, and since he had well-timed lunge on Swiftblade, and I had played Haymaker, that was a dead Mollog. So, but Jared really Jared really won the game on the last play, because I had set myself up to score Conquest and Denial, and Jared placed himself on an objective thinking ahead for the tie, and with his last power card, he played Baffling Illusion, which prevented my Bat Squig from actually getting into his territory. It was insanely frustrating. But we ended up tying on glory, and Jared won the tie based off of him being on the objective.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue. I mean, Jared, like, how'd you, first off, you're obviously playing Farstriders, so you want to bring us up to speed on what your tactics were, and then give your...
Yeah, so it was a heavily modified version of the Farstriders that I've ended up settling on. Been playing Farstriders since after Nova. Started aggro, went passive. Neither of those really worked as well as I wanted them to, so shifted towards kind of a control deck. So I had in my, what I would call my competition deck, things like not hidden paths, invisible walls, and frozen in time, baffling illusion, all of these things to either stop or slow down, an aggro deck so that I can, get charged up and then swing when I want to. But obviously those cards are not all available. And a lot of the passive scoring options are not available, when you're running in this limited format. So I kind of shifted back towards a semi-passive. So I was running Eternal Supremacy and Supremacy. I had Brave but Cautious. And then, knowing that I was probably going to face Mollog, I ended up with, I had Sigmar's Finest in there, which is where you're like outnumbered by 3 or more models. And then I was trying to just get a couple of score immediatelys in there. So I had Strong Star and Martyred. Intervention, which is the Farstrider specific, take somebody out that's standing on an objective. And then the really not easy to pull off Ranger Strike, which is score immediately when you take 2 or more fighters out in a single action phase. So that was the objectives. And then in the gambits, I didn't have access to everything, but I did get Baffling Illusion. I had Sidestep in there. And then, as much push tech as I could put in there, just because that's what I had been used to running. And then the thing that everybody hates when they face my Farstriders is that I get all of these 2 hammers for 3 damage with cleave attacks. So I get, in one way or another, I can get that on every fighter that I have. So Farstrider has that upgrade. Swiftblade has that upgrade. If you inspire Eagle Eye, he's 2 hammers for 3 damage by default, and then he has an upgrade that gives him cleave for everything. So, just trying to get charged up and get those, accurate, heavy damage with cleave attacks, so that I can get through, Mollog or Megors or Orcs or Dwarves. So that was kind of the tech that I ran. My first round was against Jeffrey's son, Blaine, and he was running. What was he running?
He was running
Skaven. Yes.
Skaven.
Spike Claws Swarm. And that. So that match ended up being 3 rounds of lots of hugs and rat pets. Neither of us were able to land anything. Either I would miss, or I would hit, but he would defend, or he would miss, or he would hit, but I would defend. So it was just a lot of nothing going on for the first two action phases, and then finally in the third action phase, I was able to make some stuff happen and take some guys out. So the first round, I took 8-3, scoring most of my stuff in the end, which I think included a Supremacy at the end. And then, so round 2 was against Trace. And I think I was a little rusty and I made a couple of missteps. And then, Lady Luck, being what she is, she's fickle. And Trace should have had it. And it just didn't work out.
You shouldn't have been rusty. You two play all the time.
Well, that had been. I think it had been 2 or 3 weeks since I had played with any kind of regularity before this, though. I think life was just being busy.
Yeah, Jared and I definitely went through the testing phase, but for us, it was more testing on round format, not so much. And obviously, you test the decks when you're doing that, but it was really to make sure the format functioned the way we wanted it to function.
Yeah.
But I'm really like, so Baffling Illusion, like Trace pulled, like he's like, oh, this Baffling Illusion ruins it for me. Like, go into that. So that might be something new to our listeners. Is it's a card that's kind of overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, it's not one that I've seen run a lot. So, and I think I've seen it pop up in a couple of the Facebook communities, but not a lot. So Baffling Illusion, it reads as follows. The first time a fighter would make a move action in the next activation, their fighter instead scatters X from the hex the fighter occupies and pushes the fighter along the chain to the end hex. X is the fighter's move characteristic. If the fighter cannot be pushed into a hex, the push ends in the last hex in the chain that it can occupy. Place a move token next to that fighter. So when I first started playing this card, we were actually misplaying it because we missed the would make a move action in their next activation, their player instead scatters. So I think I had played it a couple times against you, Jason, and we allowed that scatter to count as a move, which meant that you got to continue to pull off a charge, which meant I think at the time you were pretty heavy into your Godspawn, so got Jagathra, as long as she could get within range 3, she could still throw her spear, Olo could still shoot his bow.
You did it with me too.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's not a move action. It's instead. So it becomes a push, and then that fighter gains a move token. So we originally went back and forth, as we were kind of coaching each other and deck building and trying to polish our decks. Is this worth it? Is it would it be better to put something else in? I originally just put it in because I thought it was hilarious. Like just the idea that, oh, you can't move, you're going to spin around in circles or whatever. But then we realized its strength that no, you can stop a charge. And so you're either forcing somebody to draw a power card or put somebody on guard or something, which gives you basically another activation to react. Or, if it's somebody that's trying to get into the zone to get conquest.
Rolling 5 dice, mind you.
5 dice with the bat.
And I was only 1 hex away, so just to kind of get, this is terrible radio, but
you were right off.
I was on the corner, so Jared had basically made it to where we were diagonal deployment, where you have the 3 hexes in the middle, and I had 1 hex. I was on the edge hex right before you got to the corner, and so I was like, I got 5 dice, I can make this work. And so I did it, and basically Bat Squig just shot along the midline and never made it above, and it made me so sad. But
yeah, it was
But it was a great. And I told you this at the time, it was a hell of a play, and
it was the only way I was going to win that match.
Exactly, it was the only way you were going to win, and it's okay. You got to go play Mollog again after.
Yeah, I did. So I'll go into that, and then so I won my first, and then won my second. So it's myself, and then Austin Johnson, who's a semi-regular at the tournaments that we run at Game Theory, but he actually plays more often at Atomic Empire. That's kind of his home store. He was playing Mollog as well, and I think I did about the best that I could, but I think that there were a couple of rolls and that's all it takes with Mollog, right? Is 1 or 2 rolls to go in his favor before things go crazy. That ended up, getting it out. The one thing that I did really enjoy about that game was in the first action phase. So he won board placement. So of course he goes wide, right? That way Mollog can get wherever he goes. I'm using the Soul Refractor board, so that's the one with the triangle of blocked hexes. out of the Night Vault box. And so I position my 3 objectives, as far back as I can within the limitations so that I can be set up for supremacy and eternal supremacy. And I draw into supremacy. But then he puts the stalag squig on one of my objectives. So so that was rough. So I kind of did some maneuvering and some finagling to kind of keep Mollog away from me as much as possible. He ended up getting in and he got a swing on Eagle Eye, who was on position next to an objective, the one that the stalag squig was on, because I had gone in to swing to take the stalag squig down, and that didn't work. And so he ended up next to the objective, but not on it. So my last activation was a charge with Farstrider. I had played the Lightning Blow, which is the Farstrider specific ploy that does +1 damage to the next attack. So Farstrider shoots his gun at the stalag squig. I think I rolled at least a crit. And then his 2 defense dice failed him. So I did 2 damage to the stalag squig. And then I played Rager's Advance to push Farstrider onto an objective, and then Eagle Eye onto the now empty stalag squig objective. And I think that was the only thing that kept me close to being remotely in the game, because I got that 3 glory early and was able to get some upgrades on. But then by the time it was all said and done, I only ended up getting like 3 more glory. And then Austin ended with 9. So it was 9-6. So Austin took the tournament. He won some glass, which is cool. But that was, that's the way it went. And yeah.
So good. I mean, way to send the first riders off with a top table finish, right?
Right.
Some other questions though, like, so watching that game, and we'll get to my warband here in a few seconds, folks. I played dwarfs. Look out.
Yeah, but, like old dwarves, not even the new hotness, because they weren't out yet.
Yeah, the old dwarves. So, but watching that, you won. I'm using air quotes. You lost board placement, so you had 3 objectives, right? So I was like, oh, like he has a chance with knowing that you had supremacy and the Farstrider supremacy. But you also ran some strange tech in your deck just in case, which was the objective where if you score nothing, you score.
Yep.
So why did you make the decision to not go for that? Like, what was your thought process?
So all or nothing is the objective. It's 5 glory. And if you score no other objectives, then in the third end phase, if you've scored no other objectives, you get 5 glory. And I think by the time it was said and done, I actually would have, if I hadn't scored supremacy, I think I would have had 7 glory. Because I killed the mushroom and I killed the stalag squig. So it would have been 2 glory for the 2 kills plus the 5 glory for the objective. The problem there is that you are sitting on unupgraded fighters trying to take down Mollog. So I think if I had been against another warband, something with, more fighters, but less health per fighter, or easier targets, then I think that probably could have been a way to go, is just leave my guys unupgraded, go with the inherent accuracy that, that Farstriders have, plink damage down, avoid where I can, and just get glory from kills, and then at the end add 5 on top of whatever kills I have. But I was sitting there with a 7 health, 2 hammers for 4 damage, because he, of course, had Regal Vision, and his first move was to push Mollog onto the objective and then play Regal Vision. So
yeah,
I was just staring at an inspired Mollog who was going to one-shot all my guys. So there was no way I was going to be able to deal with that without being upgraded.
Okay. I mean, it's just something for, for our listeners out there, that there is this card, and it is a conscious decision, because you can score no other objective the entire game until the third phase where you score this. But, one of the things that kind of gets lost a little bit here in Underworlds is, remember that glory denial or disrupting what your opponent is doing is just as valuable as going for your own glory. I know that, now that I've kind of transitioned into aggro warbands, I often lose sight of that, focusing on just what's in my hand and scoring that glory. So it's a really good refresher, reminder that, hey, if you can deny some glory and score it all in the end, you could still win.
That's right.
Well, good. So, I took dwarfs, the good old squatty bodies that don't move whatsoever. Oh, and one other shout out, like before I move into my deck, another shout out to Austin. Like his deck was definitely put together for this style event. He ran double denial with Mollog, and being an aggressive deck that he ran, and everyone being afraid of Mollog, and especially in this format. He brought the fight to you, so he really didn't give you a lot of chance to get into his backfield,
right?
And that really worked out in his favor in a lot of his games. So he definitely had the deck and the warband fit to win this event. So congratulations to him again. So for me, like, the dwarfs were all the rage. And honestly, I took the dwarfs or the chosen axes as anti-Mollog tech, and it's fitting because I ended up by playing them twice in this tournament. So, my first match was against Steelhearts, against a new player. I think his name, Ryan. It was a good match. He definitely was learning the game. Can't really take too much away from it. It was a one-sided score at the end. But I think he learned a few things. He definitely played it well, where he didn't just rush in and try to hack and slash his way through. He drew into cards and waited and bought his time, but then the dice kind of failed him. And the way that the dwarfs are set up is if they hit you, you're gonna die. The dwarfs do punch well. So I took that and I shot up right to the top of the board. I think I won that 10-0, something like that. It was definitely more lopsided than the game itself, if some rolls went some different ways. And my objectives with the dwarfs were, obviously focus on fuel, because that's kind of a really good strategy when you're playing them. And then also just to get a lot of little scoring, and at the end of the game, be in my opponent's zone. So I was playing Conquest, Unstoppable Advance, and then hold objectives, like hold objective 1 through 5, and then everything else kind of focused around fuel. My gambits were Indomitable, which is an awesome card. Like, it just mitigates damage down to 1. Piercing Stare, which for even full format games, Piercing Stare is like better than Transfixing Stare, because it stops somebody from attacking or charging. And then a lot of pushes and healing potions with Regal Vision. And then my upgrades were all about dice mitigation with not Potion of Rage, because it wasn't available. I had Potion of Grace, Potion of Constitution, so double moving, making sure I get it crossed, Glory Seeker, Great Fortitude, and then Speed, Activated Ruins, Rising to the Challenge, and then some end phase scoring and Slumbering Key. So that's kind of where my deck was. Like I said, I won the first round, and then I went on to play Austin in the second round. And it was a really good game. He positioned himself well with Mollog. He wasn't super aggressive turn 1, but I made a critical error and forgot my game plan. So I saw Mollog, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to wait for him to come to me, and I'm going to be powered up. So I put my dwarfs kind of in the back, spread them out a little bit, but I won, quote unquote, lost. So I placed first board, and I had 3 objectives to place. So I spread out as much as I could, because he kind of off-centered the boards. And where I messed up is I put an objective in the center. So I was thinking like, hey, the way that he deploys Mollog, I may be able to put a fighter kind of up front, move him onto that objective, Regal Vision, and take the fight to him. And then when I deployed, I completely deployed in the back and spread out on both sides of my board. And I gave him that objective so he was able to move on Regal Vision himself and set him up into in getting into my zone. And really it came down to like kind of two things. So turn one, he does that because of my mistake, and I lost sight of the long term, as in I fell back even further with fuel. I killed the Stalag Squig off of an objective in my back corner, and instead of using my push tech to push fuel onto an objective to get him inspired next turn, I try to save another fighter, and I use that to push them out of range of Mollog. So I was like, haha, Mollog cannot reach anyone. And then all he did was simply push him back into range. And what happened there is then I wasn't able to inspire fuel, which put me on my back foot for actually fighting Mollog in turn 2. But turn 2 comes along, he comes in, he scores a bunch of stuff, does a really good job at moving his other fighters up and scoring, that feeding frenzy. And, he definitely played well. But then at the end of 2, I make an attack to eliminate Mollog, and he crit defenses me.
No.
And yeah, and that
on a single dice.
Yeah,
on a single die,
Oh,
he
God.
critted it, saved it. And that really sealed my fate because I needed all of turn 3 to get my remaining 2 fighters from the kind of back of my board into his territory, knowing that he was probably running denial. I didn't foresee him running double denial, the in-faction denial and then regular denial. And I was sitting on Conquest and Unstoppable Advance. I was playing a damage hex board, so my plan was to kill off one of my own fighters and get fuel across into his zone to score, 4 glory, so a 3 glory swing. That did not happen.
no.
And because I had to then attack in turn 3,
Right.
so I just didn't have enough time to double move and all the things that I had to do to get across. And he ended up by beating me by 3 because of denial. So, the dwarfs stood up well. They did take out Mollog in turn 3, but just wasn't quite enough. So that set us up for Trace and I to play
Game
round
numero
3.
3.
And going up against Mollog again. So, I'll do the quick recap. I kind of learned from my mistakes. I, spread out. I went with the same board and same type of setup. Where kind of funneled Trace into the center with Mollog. He came in there. We did a whole lot of slap a fists there for a while. He definitely missed some crucial attacks with Mollog for some scoring, especially in turn 2.
Which is really devastating for any Mollog player. If you've ever experienced that, it really takes the wind out of the sails big time.
Yeah, and it stalled you out. I was able to finally rid this world of that terrible troll, and I was in position to have my fighters on the other side. So, thinking that he had denial, and then I also had conquest. So I did have fighters one fighter on the opposite side of the board, and then Trace did this little tricksy thing. So he got my 2 fighters were kind of in the center of my board with his other fighters, and he moved in a way that I thought he was coming to attack, which I'm like, this is weird. Like, you're not going to be able to kill my guys. I don't see what he's doing. And then the last activation of the last turn, Trace, what did you do to me?
So I played Potion of Grace on the Spite Shroom, which Spite Shroom wins the day sometimes. So old Spite Shroom with his move 2, I moved him in, pulled his movement token off of him, and Jason was like, okay, whatever. And so then my last activation, I moved him within 2 of pretty much every the remaining fighters that Jason had, which was 2 left. And I was within 2 of the one that he had in my territory, and I played center of attention and pulled him out of my territory, which lost him conquest and scored me denial. So I ended up winning on that one last play, and Jason was like, "Oh, well played."
It was nice. It was, a lot of people talk about Mollog, and once he goes down, it's kind of over. And yeah, this was limited format, so we didn't have access to all the cards. But it just shows like you keep grinding away, and you got me, sir. You done snookered me.
Yeah, it was I might not have practiced as much as you two, but I've got some wily veteran tricks still up my sleeve.
It was nicely done, and I really do appreciate the format, and I like to get your guys' feedback on it. But for me, I think it really achieved the objective. Like we had 10 players at this format on a Tuesday night, which 10 players at a tournament on a Tuesday night, I think is really healthy. There were 2 brand new players, and then Jeffrey, who is fairly new to the group, only played a handful of times, and then even got out some of the wily vets like ourselves out there to duke it out. It's definitely, for me, the format, not only does it introduce new players, but it really refreshed my view of the game. So, because Jared and I do play a lot, and we definitely deck theory even more, it was kind of like wiping the slate clean and getting back to basics. And although the games felt slow, and when we were playtesting the format, there were a couple nights where I played guard, and it was like, we're scoring 3 or 4 glory, and it's like, how the heck do I get across the board with the warden? But it really took you back to the basics to make you think about how you maximize activations, how you have a plan for glory denial and getting glory. So for me, it kind of hit that reset button, and I was like, oh yeah, like you forget about all this stuff because you're so focused on what's my deck, like what cards can I do, like how am I going to disrupt their plan with like a rebound or something like that. And when you don't have access to those crutch cards, I think the game shines even more. I mean, Jared, like, we play a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I didn't have any restricted cards.
Yeah, right.
So like there was no question. It wasn't like, oh God, like how am I going to fit this and that? Like, do I drop sudden growth so that I can include trap, or do I run superior tactician, but that takes up a restricted slot, so then I'm not going to have twist the knife or whatever. There were none of those questions, and I think it was a good reset. I think for me personally, if I were going to run an event similar to this, like to really get it back to basics, I would probably say in-faction cards and then Shadespire and Night Vault starter only. So not include the leader cards and not include Echoes of Glory. Or maybe only the leader pack. Because I think when we were originally playtesting, we discovered that basically every warband was going to end up with some objective cards in their deck. Like, even if it was like 1, 3, and 5 or something like that. Just because the number of objective cards that even remotely make sense but get really limited. And to echo your point, it really it slowed the game down. And I think in a bad way to some degree, but also in a good way. Like, it was a different way to look at the game and think about the game. I think the only issue that you would run into if you're not running Echoes of Glory, which has kind of some of the stronger, like it's got, strong start, opening gambit. So, martyred. Yeah. So either you can throw somebody in to die, or you can, if you are super aggressive, if you can get that first kill and get the glory train going. I think The problem that you might run into is I think that like a super passive like Curse Breakers build would be just dominant because of all of their in-faction objectives that don't require dice rolls or killing or interaction with the other warband. So, I was talking to Britt about it, before he decided to add Echoes of Glory. And I said, you might run into that issue, but it might be worth considering banning like long deployment if you do it that way, so that the aggressive warbands have the opportunity to get in. But then like, now are you even playing Underworlds anymore, right? Like by the time you stack that many restrictions, are you really teaching people how to play the game, or are you teaching people how to play your specific subset of the game? So
correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could go back and forth. It could go either way, but I mean, that was my thoughts on the format. I had fun, and I'm with you, Jason. It was kind of cool to kind of reset and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything close to what I want to do with this warband, so let me just go to a clean slate and figure out what I can do and play that to the best of my ability. What about you, Trace? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think what I appreciated the most about it was, first off, just the response that it got, which was awesome. 10 people on a Tuesday is just incredible. But I think it really it made you use your brain more, which is what I appreciate about this game. Like, there's obviously certain things that are a little bit more optimized than others, but I mean, that's just any kind of game. Like, we as gamers find the most optimized things, and then we kind of gravitate towards those things. But what I appreciate about the way that this format worked was you had to rethink what you wanted to achieve. Because, I mean, I shot several decks to Jared on the day of the tournament, and I was like, I could run with this one, but it was like really, really optimized. Had like basically no fat to it. It was all Mollog all day. And I was just like, if I run into somebody who's not really played a whole lot, this is not going to be a good experience for them. So then I kind of went back and retweaked it, and I included a lot more of the fighters that are in that warband. So without this format, that probably never would have happened,
Yeah.
So, and you even said, like, that looks like a fun deck to play. And it got those, it was kind of wonky and had some stuff that, if it paid off, great. If not, that's fine too. Because at its core, Mollog still has the killing power to like demolish a whole warband on his own, especially in a limited format. So like feeding into that and optimizing that, obviously, if you want to just straight up win a tournament, like, you don't really care, you just want to win, sure, you could like totally make that, and he's probably your best choice in this format if you just want to win. But I think the nice thing about the way that this format worked was, it, like I said, you had to rethink your strategies. Like, Jared, I know you had to rethink your strategy because you had gotten so used to playing your warband a certain way.
Right.
Jason played a whole different warband than what he normally plays because it wasn't going to play the way that he wanted to play, but he was also trying to find something good for this format too. So it got him out of his comfort zone, got me out of my comfort zone. Like, it was just great. I thought that the format was awesome, and I appreciate Britt for putting it out there. So
yeah.
Cool. So with the limited format, what one card, and I'll give an example, that you wouldn't normally play that you kind of like found while going through cards, and you're like, wow, that card has some upside in certain situations. For me, there was really two. Like, Commanding Reach was where you get your commander can have, up to 2 range on a normal attack. So playing fuel and having 2 reach, or a attack that has range 2, was like, hey, I didn't even know this card really existed. Would never have played it any other time. And then the really like kind of diamond in the rough for me was Tyrant's Command, which is like leader has to be on the board, but it's like choose a friendly fighter that has a move token, remove that token. That fighter is not considered to have moved for the purpose of their subsequent actions. You can only play this if your leader is on the battlefield. Keyword there, choose friendly fighter other than your leader. So like very like situational.
Yeah.
But I honestly never read that card before, and like there's a lot of applications for that where like, you got the dog running up one flank, you need to double move them. You can just set a lot of stuff up with warbands that people will not be expecting because that card is not played. I mean, Jared, did you notice any card that you didn't normally play?
So I think a lot of what I ended up doing was trying, in the gambits and the upgrades, was trying to replicate kind of the functionality that I had built in already. As far as, being able to kind of do some avoidance and have push tech and get my guys tooled up before I go in for the kill. So there wasn't anything like really innovative there other than I actually put center of attention in. And the intention there was to get somebody off of me. And I think I used it at one point to maybe even move a fighter. I think in the game against Austin, I think I played it on the Stalag Squig to pull Eagle Eye back to adjacent to the Stalag Squig on so that I could then subsequently push him onto the objective, assuming that Farstrider killed the Stalag Squig. So, it's not something that I normally would have put in there. Like I would have much rather had distraction where I can push an enemy fighter. But, it's not available. And then I think for the objective, you actually already called it out as the all or nothing. Like in this format, 5 glory. Boom, done. Because cool. I think I scored like, I think it was 8-3, 8-8, and then 9-6. Those were that. That was the glory in my 3 games. So, 5 glory could have been a win, if a couple of other rolls had gone a different direction. So, yeah, those are the big 2.
Cool. Trace, what about you? Anything out of your comfort zone?
The 2 things that really, the 2 objectives that I put into this deck that were outside the box for typical Mollog decks are got them. And when Jared saw this was in there, he just laughed. He cackled. He was just like, because it's the score immediately at the beginning of your activation if there are 3 or more enemy fighters adjacent to a friendly Mollog. So and I had sidestep, predatory growls, and I also had center of attention in here. So I had 3 push cards on my ploys to try and get people in contact with me. Just so I could potentially score that. And then to kind of bounce off of that, I also had easy pickings, which is score immediately if there are 2 or more enemy fighters are taken out of action by a single attack action made by a friendly fighter. So like Mollog has a sweep attack, and it's 2 damage. And when you get hit, when you get great strength on him, it's swinging for 3 damage. So like it's not an attack to kind of sneeze at. Especially if you've got some people who've been just kind of dinged up as they come across the board. So, just 2 little things that I tried to throw in there to kind of combo. Were they the most optimal things? Obviously not, but it was a fun thing to try and pull off. And if I had pulled that off, like if I had killed 2 fighters and also had them adjacent at the beginning of the turn, that would have been a 5 glory swing off of a one activation. So
that would have been fun.
Yeah. So it's definitely, those are the kind of things that I kind of looked for. And then it's funny that you talked about that Tyrant's Command card, Jared. Jason, because I remember last year at Nova, you were in a hot debate with yourself about whether or not to keep that in your Skeletons deck. I remember you having that in your deck. And I was like, it's an extra action. And you were like, yeah, so I should probably just put in something like whichever one that allows you to push 2 fighters. I forgot what the name of it is from the leader's cards.
Quick advance.
Quick advance.
Yeah, quick advance. You had changed some other stuff around. You put a different upgrade in, but I distinctly remember us talking about that card in the hotel room before the first night.
It goes. That just goes to show, like, with the cards and how much you focus on the game. I completely forgot about it. I mean, I'm like, this card is sweet.
Yeah, for a limited warband that needs movement.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great because it's a free wave. It's a free potion of grace that you can do every turn. So,
So cool. Well, that's the tournament recap. So once again, the Battle Mallet players fall a little short and don't get that glass, but it's not like we're counting anyway, right? Like we're just now. So good with that, guys. Appreciate the format. Appreciate the group that came out on Tuesday. But since then, we've had the warbands come out, which we talked about, the kind of reveals on the last episode. But we've had some time to mull over the cards and work on some decks. Jared and I finally started practicing this week. So I just want to give first impressions, like were our thoughts correct with the reveal? Are things playing out the same way? And I'm going to start with you, Jared, because I know that you got a few games in with the elves or tree people or whatever we're calling them.
The treeple.
Yeah, no. So I think they're going to be fun. I messaged Trace earlier this week. Maybe it was late last week. I'm trying to remember. It was like pros and cons going back and forth.
That was today.
Was it today?
Pretty sure it was today.
I don't remember. But I love Move 4. Like, that's a lot of fun. So prior to this, prior and leading up to Nova, I was Orcs, and they're all Move 3. And then I switched to Farstriders. So 2 of those guys are Move 3. One of them is Move 4. But there's only 3 models. So, like, Move 4 is, like, it's fast. And it's faster than it seems. It's not as fast as the Rats. Me and Move 5 all the time is pretty impressive, too. But
it was Friday. You sent it to me Friday.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so...
but your deck build is a little... I don't know. I thought it was kind of unusual because you're kind of like a hybrid, like a aggro, but you have a lot of casting. Like, what was your thought there?
Well, so I've never played a warband with a wizard before. Like, I mean, not consistently. Like, as we're kind of testing things out and we want to play against other stuff. Like, I've played Curse Breakers and I've played Thorns and stuff, but never really went heavy in it.
You're a wizard, Harry.
That's right. Better than being a hairy wizard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. But so there are a couple of reasons that I kind of went spell heavy, and one is that Yltharis are the only ones that are going to have access to 2 ways to remove objectives from the game.
I think Orcs do too, right?
They have 1.
They have 1.
Right. So 1 is a spell. So that denies any warband that doesn't have a wizard, which is the Orcs. So the Orcs have 1. I think if Gerzak can raise. Like if he's standing on an objective, he's got a ploy to remove it. So there's the spell, Avasah Sunmaking. And then there's a ploy in the Yltharis for them. Called
faction
Leech
specific.
Power. Yeah, it's faction specific. It's called Leech Power. I think it was leaked, and I think we discussed it when we were super
we talked
hyped
about
on
it a little bit.
Yeah, and so the thing that it really helps with is they have an end phase objective called Reclaim the Lamentiri, which is hold all of the objectives on one side of the board. So that could be one objective. Like even if I lose the board roll and end up with 3 objectives, I can place 1 center field, right? And then if my opponent doesn't know what I'm doing, they're going to be like, oh, well, that's cool. I'll just put 2 objectives on my side. And then, if the cards line up, I can destroy 1 on my side, stand on the other one, and then even destroy the 1 midfield. So now if they have like supremacy, or if they've got the technical supremacies, now those are off the field. So to back all of that up, Yltharis are the only warband that have a way to have 2 ways to remove an objective, which makes the score immediately objective Scorched Earth totally viable for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're probably the only warband that I would ever run it in. So I think I kind of started there. Like I was looking at that. So the Reclaim the Lamentary objective and the Scorched Earth, like just kind of something unique that nobody else is going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I've already got 1 spell in there. And part of removing an objective ends up inspiring Ylthari. So I'm probably going to regularly have an inspired wizard.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that if she ever rolls a crit when she's casting a spell, she removes a wound token, which will inspire her. So like even if I don't have leech power in hand, but I cast a spell and roll a crit, well, now she's inspired. And the importance of being inspired is the Well of Power. So it's the upgrade.
And I'd even think about something now that you just said it out loud. Like, so her reaction is if you roll a crit while casting a spell, you remove a wound token.
Right.
Well, if I double crit, I take a wound token, but my reaction then can be to remove it.
So I think that the reaction happens. I don't know what the timetable on that is. Like, I don't know if you would be able to not just take the damage. I think my thinking, the way that I'm looking at it, is that I would do the reaction to the roll. I guess it would have to be after. What's her card say? Does it say during or after? Okay, so
you technically could do it.
Yeah. So you just wouldn't want to do it if you have 2 damage on you, right? She's 3 health, right? So you're not going to be fishing for crits.
Yeah.
But if she is not damaged, right, she would roll, take the damage, and then remove it because she rolled a crit.
She becomes damaged too at range 3, right?
She does. Yeah. So she's got that going for her, and then her inspiration is that she goes to move 5. So she's threat range 8 for 2 damage, which is nothing to scoff at. She starts at 2 dodge, which puts her 1 step above Vortimus. I mean, she's no Stormsire, right? She's not sitting on a shield to 2 shields. But the upgrade that Jason and I ended up talking about this week was acrobatic and throwing that in my deck. But to back up again, Well of Power, right? So she's fairly easy Inspire mechanic. And then rolling 3 dice, and she's not as worried about the double crit situation. So it's relatively easy to get her rolling 3 dice to cast spells. I already have 1 spell to remove an objective. It seems kind of silly to not include others. And so just going through, they have an infaction spell that is a 1 damage to a fighter within 5 hexes, which is, I think, the only range 5 plink down. And then there's Sphere of Akshi, which is range 4 for 1 damage. So,
Do you have a Scroll of Recall in your deck?
Yeah, I should put it in there. It's definitely a thought.
Remove 3 objectives from the board, sir.
Yeah, right.
Well, just, I mean...
Or do Abyssos Withering twice.
Yeah,
right. I just think, with that, it kind of gets you started, and then it's key that even if those 2 cards, so some people would be like, well, what happens if you don't get the cards to remove the objectives? Like, you still have 4 fighters, so
right. So I can just sit her and do stuff with the other ones.
Yeah, so you can still go and grab the objectives you need to score that card, because that 2 glory card is just like for one objective, like if you won board placement and you put one center field and then one in your area,
Right.
like yeah, you might be playing into a objective opponent, which then you'd have to be smart about. But if they're an aggro, like one, you don't give them Fanway. Like there's no place for them to come because you have one,
right?
And you're scoring 2 glory.
Yep. Yeah. And if I, if I'm, if I can kind of read the thing, or if I'm in a best of 3 format, it figures out that they are playing supremacy or they've got the tax supremacies, then I just put 2 of them in my deployment zone. Gosh, are we playing 40K? 2 of them in my territory. And then, I mean, I've got 4 fighters. So boom, 2 move actions. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm just kind of waiting, it's not stalling anything out. So, I mean, they're not, I don't think that they're like the bee's knees. I don't think that they're going to be like the new hotness.
Well, I think any, like we've talked about many times, like any warband that's piloted well can win.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. That's my goal.
And that's why we love this game.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, just my feedback on it, like when we played, like we've played 2 games, one against my Eyes of the Nine, which, it is a passive aggressive style of deck. And, you kind of like, I also have a lot of movement in that deck.
Right.
So, you kind of came down to dice rolls, and you definitely can see that your warband having 3 health and with only 1 fighter with 4 can fold really quickly. Right. But then playing against the Godsworn, which I'm just terrible at, I'm going to admit it, folks. Like, I love my Godsworn, but I am the worst pilot of a Godsworn hunt faction. I just can't win consistently. But even with all my movement, you played aggressively, just aggressively enough, and then you went into this passive mode, and I could not get to you. So, because you had just as much movement as me, so I think it's another one of these really flexible warbands that I'm excited to play against more, because you just don't know what you're gonna get, and they hit fairly consistently. They just don't like hit with a hammer. They hit kind of with a sharpened axe, sort of. Yeah.
Well, and that's something to get used to. Is so with the Farstriders, Swiftblade rolls 3 dice for everything he does. They're always shooting on 3 dice, and the only one that goes to 3 dice is Skathael. And I gotta be honest, I think he's the sleeper in the warband. I think people were dismissing him, but 3 hammers, 2 damage with cleave is
nothing to shake a stick at, man.
Is a big deal. And if he rolls a crit, then he does an additional damage.
He's got built-in trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, the additional in the 2 games that I ran against them in, Kidspire or Kinderworlds as we call it. He was the hero, although my daughter, who was 5, killed me like 14-4 one game. So, who's counting?
Yeah, certainly not you.
No.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to kind of dialing them in and figuring them out and figuring out the way to go. I think there's certainly some vulnerabilities to being caster heavy, right? She's only got 3 health. She's only on 2 dodge. So, a savvy opponent with a lucky power hand is going to be able to dome her turn 1. But, that's going to make, it's going to make the rest of my power hand, easy decisions, right? I get to the end phase, look at all these spells. Well, I'm just going to ditch them, right? There's no like, oh, should I keep it? Should I not? Like, it could be useful. I don't know. Like, I'll be ditching Well of Power. And then currently I've got, I've got decent stuff in there, right? Like I've got Glory Seeker, I've got Challenge Seeker, Archer's Focus, Great Strength. So, there are options in there for me to tool 1 or 2 of them up to be hitting for 3. It just, the question is, how is that going to work out? The one thing that I will say is it is a lot of fun to roll 3 defense dice. Especially when you roll a crit and they take damage. And something that I didn't drill down into is that it's not react after an attack action from an adjacent enemy fighter. It's reaction after an attack action.
Yep.
If there was at least 1 crit in the defense roll for this fighter, the attacker suffers 1 damage. So, you just shot me from 4 away or 3 away or whatever. Well, I just rolled a crit in my defense, so I have a damage.
Yeah, really strong. Well, good. I look forward to playing them more and letting that deck develop. I think you're on to something. There's a good foundation there, and you'll learn. During the preview, we really fell in love with the archer, and I know in our test game so far, she really hasn't had a chance to shine. But I think as you further dial it in, you'll find that she's the one that kind of has to soften up the enemy fighters before the 2 heavy hitters go in. So
yeah,
still a lot of exploring to do. On the other side of the coin, Trace, I don't know if you got any practice games in, but I know you've been deck building heavily with the Profiteers.
Yep, I've been looking at some Sky Pirates a little bit. The thing I've been really trying to focus on with these guys is just trying to figure out ways to score without having to kill anything. And there's a deck that I've got kind of as a preliminary deck. I've gone through 3 different versions of this. I've got one of them that's a little bit more aggressive, and I've got one that's a little bit more passive, and I've got one that's more balanced. But there's a lot of this deck breaks down into 9 score immediatelys, 2 end phase, and 1 third round.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for 17 glory. So it's right in there.
Is that third end phase superior tactician? Because if it's not, it should be.
It is.
Okay, good.
It is. But it's built a lot around the score immediatelys, and the 2 that are end phase are victory after victory and combination strike. So,
yeah,
you even if you're drawing one of those in your first hand, you're really not inclined to ditch it, just because of the way that the rest of the deck is kind of built. So I've got things that are made from Thundrik's Profiteers faction only stuff, like Focus Fire. That's easy. It's very easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to shoot with 3 different fighters at the same fighter, and since they're all 1 damage, you're probably going to be around for most of that. So, and then I've got Headshot, which is critical hit with a ranged attack action of 3 or more. There's several fighters in there that all of them throw 3 dice for the most part at range, except for 2 of them. So that's a fairly high probability, at least if you're Jason. And then I got some of the new hotness in there that's kind of going around and piquing everybody's interest. I've got Calculated Risk in there, and that's also in the same vein as Martyred. There's nothing to say that I can't throw the 2 wound mook into the middle of some lethal hexes and score Calculated Risk and then Martyred right after, which could net me 2 inspired fighters. So there's some cool stuff there, and it's 2 glory on top of that. Jason, you'll be happy to know that Peerless Fighter is in this.
Now you're talking. The greatest card ever.
But, lots of things in here that don't require me to kill anything. So I'll just kind of briefly go through it, and you guys can kind of give me your snap idea of what you think. So I've got Change of Tactics, which is, why would you not in this deck? Superior Tactician, Victory After Victory. Focus Fire, which is the 3 attack actions, or 3 range 3 attack actions. Headshot, which is a critical hit on an attack action with a range 3 or more. Calculated Risk, Combination Strike, Get the Hints. Long Strider, I'll get to Long Strider in a minute because I'm sure Jason's sniffing his nose at me. Martyred, Peerless Fighter, and What Armor. So that's kind of the base deck. I think it's a pretty solid start. We'll kind of play with it a little bit, and it'll make a little more sense once I get into my gambits and my upgrades and stuff. Because I've got a lot of reroll built in too, and a lot of mobility that's built around pushes after attacks. So from my gambits, I'm rolling with Distraction, Fueled by Fury, Ready for Action, Rebounds in there because I know somebody's going to come in and try and get my grill at some point. Shattering Terrain because there's so many ranged attacks that that's just nice little extra damage if I can get a successful attack off and push somebody. Trap, Seek the Sky Vessel, which is why Long Strider's in the deck. So choose up to 2 friendly fighters and make a move action with them.
Probably one of the best faction cards that came out.
Yep.
But my opinion, you're searching for one card in your whole deck to make that objective go off.
But it's also one objective in the whole deck too. So, Toxic Gases, because it's probably the best card in the Thundrik's Profiteers deck, faction specific. It's a lose-lose situation for your opponent, whether they either take a damage or you push them up to 2 X's. So it's just one of the best cards that I've seen. Probably. I
love the flavor text on that card.
Yeah, sometimes there are no good options. Yep. Pit Traps in here, because just extra little plinks of damage here and there are awesome. And then probably my favorite card in this is Stand and Shoot. So you've got a reaction in here that allows one of the fighters who's being charged to take a attack action on the way in. That's huge. If I can spare myself from getting killed by shooting you, I'm gonna try.
Or even just do 1 damage, right?
Yeah, even just to do 1 damage. But with some of the other things that are in here, it could potentially turn lethal. So, and then you got, for my upgrades, I have Ancestral Fortitude, which is just a +1 wounds upgrade. Paymaster. So Paymaster says you can reroll 1 dice each attack roll made for friendly fighters adjacent to this fighter. So it's made for Thundrik, but when Thundrik is adjacent to any friendly fighter, it could be 2 or 3 of them. They all get a reroll, which is pretty huge for 1 upgrade. Yes, it's just for him, but he kind of is the linchpin for the warband. So if he's dead, you're screwed anyway for the most part.
Yeah. True.
Rapid reloads in here just because getting extra activations out of Enric Ironhail is just a good option for me, I think. Archer's Focus, which is reroll 1 attack dice for each roll. For the attack roll each time this fighter makes an attack action with a range of 3 or more. I mean, they all have a ranged attack action.
Yep.
Except, they all do. So, Blessing of Hydrigos, which is probably one of my favorite upgrades in the past expansions. After this fighter's attack action that succeeds, push this fighter up to 2 hexes. These guys are slow, so anytime that you are able to succeed an attack, which you're trying to just succeed on most of these things anyway, not necessarily do all the damage, but just succeed.
Yeah,
being able to reposition after that is huge. And then couple that with Duelist Speed, which is reaction after this fighter's attack action, push them up to 1 hex. So I've got all kinds of stuff in here.
Something just hit me.
What's that?
Stand and Shoot with either of those.
Correct. Yes. You're with me now.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
So,
and that's why
Hey there,
well, Mollog.
We were not.
Well, it couldn't be Mollog because it's Stand and Shoot is against a range 1 attack.
Yeah.
Oh, it's adjacent. But I mean, say Mollog comes in and he wants to be adjacent for whatever reason.
So then yeah,
that's awesome.
And then I have Glory Seeker in there too. Great Fortitude just to get a little extra health. Potion of Rage to help with some of the critical success cards that are in here, and Tome of Vitality. So at its core, I'm pretty pleased with where it's at right now, and we'll kind of see how it goes. But yes, basically this deck has a potential for having a quick thinker in here.
This is, I like it, and I think it's the 9 score immediately is right where they need to be. I'm gonna argue that you should take out Long Strider all day, and you could totally put in, and it's gonna escape me now, the glory that you score when you kill somebody with a reaction.
Master Stroke.
Master Stroke. Mm-hmm. Just because you have Pit Trap, Trap, Ready for Action. So there's 3 cards that you have the potential of scoring that card with, and Stand and Shoot.
And
and rebound.
faction or the guy
And
the
rebound.
upgrade with and then the upgrade with the guy with the minigun. You got that upgrade in there too, and that's a reaction.
Rapid reload.
Yep.
And
So they're like, I think that fits a lot more. Stand and Shoot can definitely do it. Your guys go to 2 damage. You put Glory Seeker on, they could be doing 3 damage at range 3. Like, I just think that fits more than your. Don't get me wrong. Seek the Sky Vessel is a heck of a lot easier to get, right? But it's 1 card.
What about you don't have Death from Afar?
I don't, but because I didn't want to build anything into this deck that required me to kill anything.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you had said that. Yep. No, that's a good point. Yeah, fair enough.
Because
because you don't have Strong Start. You don't have.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Nice.
Nope. None of it relies on me killing anything. I can be annoying as shit, but it's not.
And everyone's gonna hate on Peerless Fighter, right? Like,
yep.
But when you're listen, I love that card, and it like everyone's like I guarantee all the listeners like take that stupid card out and put in what you just recommended for, the reaction thing, but like because you're doing plink damage, like you're gonna have to stay 5 to 6 spaces away to get your attacks in with your movement shenanigans. Mm-hmm. You're going to be rolling so much dice, and with the score immediately as soon as you start inspiring and rolling 3 dice and rolling 3 dice and rolling 4 dice
rolling 4 dice on Homeboy.
Like it's going to happen. I mean, it would happen for anyone but you, but I really like it.
Yeah.
I think it's a solid start for me.
And
we'll get some games in and try and mess with it a little bit. But just kind of there's lots of sneaky damage in here that'll add up over time.
Yeah.
Like the Pit Trap, Toxic Gases, Trap, Shattering Terrain, Rebound. Like, it's just, there's a lot of things, and with distraction in there and being able to like push you into my own lethal hexes and doing some other stuff, like I think there's some cool opportunities to still be able to do damage, but not require myself to do that damage. So that's just going to be bonus glory on top of whatever I'm able to score. So
yeah, I like it.
Yep, I think it'll be and I knew as soon as I said long strider, Jason's gonna be like, nope.
He's already bristling over there.
Yep. No, I absolutely love this deck. I think it's gonna be fun. It fits kind of like the way I like to play things in this like keep away, like you're gonna come, but I'm gonna deny you glory because I'm really not going to engage with you. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get some trial games in against it, and we'll see if you can get your guys inspired, man. They're gonna be in.
What are you? If you're inspired, you go to what? 5, 4, 4, 3, 3.
Yep. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
But locking on shields, like, which is the only real negative because of cleave in the game. But he's got built-in defense with his reaction, setting up the damage hexes. It'll be fun. So, anything else on the Profiteers?
No, I think they're going to be kind of sneaky. I think it's going to be kind of the same way that Jared's is. Like, it's going to have.
Yours.
It's going to take.
It looks similar to the way that I was running my Far Striders.
It is. And I might have taken a couple notes out of your book.
And that is a-okay, my friend.
You kick my ass enough time. I think I've won against you twice in this damn game. So, and most of it's because Lady Luck always favors you.
Yeah, that's true. She does.
But I'm excited to try it. It's completely different than most of the stuff that I usually run, and it's been a nice mental exercise for me to think about how I can score glory without just trying to murder my opponent. So, I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to get some practice games in with you guys and get them painted, which is in the works. But yeah, so I'm excited to get some games in, and I think that's probably all we got for Crack Glass, right, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's a wrap. Appreciate everybody tuning in for another Unchained Crack Glass segment with Danny away, where we get to ramble on and on about our favorite game, Underworlds. And I really hope that our listeners are starting to understand the way that we play this game. So all three of us definitely approach the game from a similar standpoint, where we want to take a warband and maybe not play it the traditional way or optimized way. I really like the way that we're all approaching the game and trying to be kind of a unique snowflake, but really push what the game mechanics are, and not just falling in line and playing with that, really strong warband. So with that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes.
Welcome back. Over this past weekend, apparently there was an Australian Championship 2019 that I didn't realize was as big of a thing as it is. Apparently got quite a large turnout. I didn't actually get to see the numbers, but because they had so many people, there was actually a GW preview down there. Did you guys know that?
I didn't know that they were going to do it until I think sometime last week, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, something to look forward to on Saturday."
Yeah, it was really cool, and it actually turned up Friday for us because Saturday there is like, whatever.
I think I saw it first thing Saturday morning.
Yeah, it was super early. One of the days, I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Yeah.
But I was super excited to see all this stuff because it's like, anytime we get unexpected information, we're always kind of excited. So I'll kind of run through some of the things that they kind of previewed, a couple of which I have kind of close to my heart. The first one is, I know most of the people who listen to this show play a little bit of 40K or play some form of GW game, and so you can appreciate some big stompy things. Well, they previewed, it was a teaser trailer in their animation style that was for Renegade, like a actual Renegade Night Kit, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah, like just in the picture, he's like got a bunch of like pikes or spires on his back, and spikes coming off the shoulder pads. He's got like a bunch of carrion birds flying around him.
Yep.
Well, and like a power claw. Well, like
it looks like a lightning claw.
Yeah, and it's on the right hand. Oh, so good.
Yep. It's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be a interesting time here for Chaos players here soon, but I'm not going to delve into all that because not everybody's interested in that. So, but what we will move on to is something that Jared and I are super excited about, which is Warcry.
Yeah.
So we got to see another of the warbands that is going to be in Warcry, and man, like
the Untamed Beast.
They look so much like what they look like the Godsworn Hunt, Jason.
They do look like the Godsworn Hunt, Jason.
How do you feel about that?
Well, you know me, I'm Warcry curious. So I was pleasantly surprised when some pictures appeared in our chat thread sent over by Mr. Jared, and I am really curious. Like I may be committing, and this is exactly what I was looking for for Age of Sigmar. Like, I need this faction. Like, I want to play Godsworn Hunt, Untamed Beasts in Age of Sigmar, and I think that this will be a great way for me to delve into that. These models are beautiful. They are very Marauders, barbarian looking, so Conan the Barbarian mixed with like a kind of like a Beast Master-esque.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Kodo and Podo to run around the corner.
Yeah, well, and really, guys, that's what clinched it for me. So, Age of Sigmar, I like the mounts, like, so anything that's like cavalry based, and I also like anything that kind of has a pet. So Godsworn Hunt has a dog, and I think that that's really cool, even though he's blind and doesn't really do much but squirmy martyred. The fact that these guys are going to have access to like a lion ram thing.
What you're saying is you like the pets, but you like to murder the pets, is what you're saying.
Well, not in real life. I love my dog, but I just like, I think that this warband is going to be, it's just awesome. Like in the lion ram death machine, just killed it for me, or solidified that I will be buying this set, and
that didn't take long.
Being full Warcry curious. The other model that I absolutely love is the big hulking guy. He's got like two horns coming out of his back, and he's holding almost like an axe, like that has teeth, but then he's got that big spear.
Yep.
And it's like, yes.
He's got a spear, and he's got like rope attached to it. Like
it's essentially a harpoon.
He's got he's hucking a harpoon at you.
Yep. He's
Scorpion. Yep. He's Scorpion. Get over here.
Yep.
So the only thing like that I'm worried about is now I have my Godsworn Hunt, which kind of has, this dog skull as a symbol. And then you have the Untamed Beast, which has this like ram looking skull as a symbol. And I really hope that in Age of Sigmar, these all meld together where I can have one cohesive looking force.
Yep.
And play into that game as well. So.
I don't really think you're going to have to worry because the actual Marauder sculpts that are for Age of Sigmar, what used to be Warhammer Fantasy, have been out since Jared and I were in high school. So,
wow.
And you're not far removed. I think you're 2 years older than us, maybe. You're 1 year older than
what
Jared.
You're talking about. You guys were in high school when there wasn't even the internet, so
Yep. So, but I think that that's a very safe bet that you're going to have. I think that if they go the route of Dark Oath, that these are definitely the type of sculpts that they'll have, because we've already seen the Dark Oath War Chieftain or the War Queen, the guy from Silver Tower who's got Conan the Barbarian look to him.
Yeah.
And then you've got these guys, and you've got Godsworn Hunt, and I think that those are going to be the most common theme through. There might be a little bit of a variation, but just the builds of these models are incredible. Like the musculature on them is awesome.
Yeah,
like they just look
sculpts are so good.
So I think that you are in for a treat, my friend, and I look forward to seeing you spiral down the dark path with Jared.
That's true. Yeah, there's a big old 8-pointed store on the side of this quote awesome goat lion thing end quote.
Yep. And I just love the tagline. I love the tagline of their warband, the Untamed Beast. It says "Hunt the Hunter." So like, I just think that that's just such a cool theme for them, that they're like out for the biggest and the baddest, and that's what they're going to try and take down, because they think that through that they gain power, which is just such a cool. It's just a cool idea.
Yeah. I think you're right on it. The only aesthetic thing that has me worried is because all of their weapons are bone weapons, and Godsworn Hunt actually has like rudimentary metal style weapons.
Yeah, I think you'll kind of see a midway point more towards Godsworn Hunt than you will of these guys, but there's still some very similar style elements that are crossovers. So I think that they're going to be. I think I'm hoping for you that they're that these are going to be kind of the sculpts that we'll see in the future. So
and
my survey notes said, "Make this army, and I will buy it." So
right.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and and if the past is any indication, GW is really good about getting rules for models to be able to be played in their greater systems. So like the Kill Team Rogue Trader box set. Like there are rules to play all of those models in Warhammer 40K.
Right.
Blackstone Fortress, they released data sheets to play all of those models in Warhammer 40K. So I think in one form or another, I mean, this may be like they might play out as like a small mercenary warband in your Dark Oath, the Slaves to Darkness kind of full army. But yeah, if these sculpts are any indication of
what's to come,
of what's to come for the Slaves to Darkness, Dark Oath, then yeah, I think you're sunk. I think they've got you hook, line, and sinker, Jason.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
I also think that they've got one of the rumor engines that was I think it was last week or this week. No, last week. The guy that was holding the spear.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely either from Warcry, or he's also from the Slaves to Darkness / Ever Chosen.
You're thinking like a Vanguard on foot?
Yep, I am.
Yeah.
I am, because it's exactly the same gauntlet style that's
right
on the Vanguard.
Yeah, it almost looks like a Terminator gauntlet, but it's not quite mechanical enough.
Not. And they don't really do that wrapping the same way.
Right. Yeah, it looks more like cloth wrapping than it does like leather wrapping, which is what you would see on a 40K style weapon.
So I think that's either going to be another warband for this game, or it's going to be part of that larger release for the Chaos Deities later.
Yeah.
Anyway,
wait, so back up. You lost me here. So there was a rumor engine that had something else that looked very similar to these, but are not these models?
Well, it's still... It looks very Chaos-esque.
And it looks Age of Sigmar.
It looks Age of Sigmar, and it looks very similar to the Vanguard gauntlets that are on the Vanguard, the guys that are riding like the demonic horses for Archaon, like the pack of 3 guys. The gauntlet looks exactly the same. So I'm thinking either they're making on foot versions of those guys, or that's a character, like an on foot character, or a mounted character that's not Archaon. Or it's a member of like a much smaller, more elite warband for this game. There'll be like 3 dudes that'll be super armored and stuff like that. So yeah, those are my guesses.
I hope so, because I mean, I have ideas for days. I'm intimidated by having to paint so much like flesh, but I'm thinking like squad marks, because I'm very 40K focused. Like I can do different color tattoos and just totally get into that. So it's
best part about tribal marks is they don't have to be neat.
That's
right.
And I think that you'll find that skin is actually easier to pull off than
you think.
It is. Like I've painted skin before. It's like, because our like Space Marine. Let's face it. The most I've painted, the few things I have, is like armor plates, right? So it's just a lot more contour. But I've done fine painting orcs and other flesh tones.
Do your prime Zenithal highlight. Go over it with your flesh tone and airbrush. Hit it with wash. Edge highlight done.
Yep. You don't have to make it super complicated.
Yeah, I mean, even like just looking at these guys, like there's not like crazy amounts of depth. Like it looks like it was base coated, washed, and highlighted.
Yeah, it's just they got my hopes really up, because if this warband comes out and it is exactly what I've been looking for, I love the Marauder on horseback or whatever, the riders. And then, this warband in Godsworn Hunt ties so well into Beast of Chaos, and then I can get back into my Doom Bowl. I mean, you're talking years down the road, because me, I don't make impulse purchases.
No, not at all.
Very, very methodical.
Right. Measured.
Yes.
Yep.
You are the model of solidarity, sir.
That's right.
But I kind of digressed on the rumor engine, so sorry I spiraled us out there. But so the next thing that we kind of got covered was Forbidden Power. So Forbidden Power is the next phase in the Soul Wars campaign, where we got some really interesting looking terrain.
Yeah. Do you know what I see?
What do you see?
line of sight blockers.
I do see that. Yes.
Yeah, like every piece of terrain is infantry height or higher.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid surface.
Yep.
I see a really nice model kit to make Prospero burns. That's what I see.
Agreed. I mean, all you got to do is
point.
you just really got to replace Sigmar up there and put, Magnus or something like that. You're good to go.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it has a very Egyptian feel. The
it's
onyx.
Azir. It's Azir. It's the realm of light, which has always kind of had kind of Egyptian feel to it. So
and it's modular, like the way that it looks. Like it looks like you can peel like the steps off and stuff. So that like the first picture is a rectangle, and then the second picture is a circle, and then the third picture is like a semicircle. So and it looks like it's all designed to kind of fit together neatly and build out, these cool looking platforms with bridges between them and stuff.
And if you look real closely at the circle image, you can actually see the line that's down the middle that actually has
the center line where it splits. It's two semicircles that get pushed together to form the circle. Yeah,
it is a huge leap forward for Age of Sigmar from a terrain standpoint, because most of those Age of Sigmar terrain kits are you build it this way. This is more of that modular, you build it the way you want it to be. So it's really cool.
And then there's also the terrain that's going to be coming in Warcry too. That's going to be useful for Age of Sigmar too, because it's got its own set of terrain. It's going to be very similarly boxed like the Kill Team box, where you had brand new terrain that they had never seen before. I think we're going to get kind of the same dose with that with Warcry. So I'm excited to see that for that alone. So and then also just kind of going through some of the other stuff, like some new, I guess, campaign battles that they've got in the book that they're talking about with some of the Fire Slayers and the Stormcasts, and then we've also got a really beautiful piece of artwork.
Wait, back up.
Wait.
Because I think you missed something important. With Forbidden Power, you'll be able to recruit renowned sellswords to your Karos, regardless of Grand Alliance.
That's crazy.
If you look, it's Fire Slayers fighting against Stormcast.
Yep.
So these are sellsword Fire Slayers. So they say, for example, you could have a Chaos Army and enlist some of the notoriously Urgold hungry warriors of the Greyfeared Lodge.
Well, I mean, they do like gold.
But I'm saying like alliances.
I know.
Mercenaries.
Allies.
Dogs
They're
of war.
introducing allies from.
Well, but they already have allies. Now they're doing mercenaries. It's Dogs of War from Warhammer Fantasy.
It is. Yes, it is. Why'd you have to show me that? Damn it.
So this is my question, and I didn't know that you didn't know this.
I didn't
ask
see
you
that
about it yet.
I missed it.
Is this going to change anything for us for Age of Sigmar Devils, or are we just going to stick with what we got?
Let's stick with what we got for right now.
Okay, well, let's at least wait until the book comes out, I suppose.
We'll see what happens from there.
All right. But anyway, so you were going to say this gorgeous piece of artwork.
Yeah, there's this beautiful piece of artwork that's right below that one that is the Celestant Prime and Lady Olinder, and it's so abstract and kind of weird looking, but it's just beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening to this because we're describing an image on radio, please go to the Warhammer community page and look at it.
We'll put links.
3/4 of the way down the page. It's green and purple and ghostly colors. It's beautiful. Yeah. And then another thing that I was just kind of pretty excited about, even though I'm not going to be keeping these anymore probably. Is there was a fun little skit that they did in animation form between a Ylthari Alphas and a tech priest, and the tech priest is they're basically asking for transportation for the Ylthari, and it keeps saying request denied. request denied. And then finally, at the end of it, it says, we'll stop asking if you just give it to us. And then it goes ... and it says agreed. And then so basically what that's saying is that we'll now have some AdMech transports incoming, which I think is a huge step forward for them.
Yeah, it will definitely impact that army with how shooty heavy it is, but at the same time very like glass from a toughness standpoint. It'll definitely help them, but we just got to give that shout out to GW again for poking fun at themselves and the community in a way that is so tactful. Like, hey, we've asked for this 500 times. Nope, not going to do it. Not going to do it. Okay, we'll do it. Yeah, so it is hilarious, and can't wait to see what that model looks like.
Model or models. I don't know if it'll be multiple or, I mean, because there's been some rumor engines again that have kind of lent themselves to more AdMech-y kind of looking things. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what those are. And then there's one that you kind of commented on, Jason, which was the new Primaris Tech Priest, who's actually a special character for the Iron Hands, which is something new. Like, I don't think the Iron Hands have had a named special character, have they?
No, not in this way. They have not. And really, it's one of the first. It's not the first because Shadow War gave us a named Primaris HQ, right. But like it's another named Primaris HQ. It's for a chapter that doesn't get a whole lot of notoriety or fanfare in the model. I think this model from Primaris standpoint really shows exactly what scaling up the Space Marine range can do. Because this character,
he looks so beefy.
Yeah, like the old Tech Priest model, or Tech Marine model looked fantastic. Like, I mean, I have one for my Crimson Fist army. It's like, oh, this is super cool. He's got all these arms, but like, the detail on this, it's a whole nother level because it can be bulkier and bigger in the size. I mean, even though I don't run this chapter, like I'm going to buy this model and he will be in, he will be firing my Thunderfire cannon for my Crimson Fist.
Right.
Because it's the same base size. Like he can be a normal Tech Marine. So it's really, really cool. I love the gun. That's like, the bolter.
It's a heavy bolter.
Yeah. Like
it's
it just,
heavy bolter.
the feed, the bullet feed just is so, it's just amazing what they can do with these CAD designs and plastic now.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned the feet because that's one of the things that I noticed, and it's one of those things I can't unsee because all I see are like platform disco shoes, basically. So like, you could do a fun conversion with this of making the Tech Marine John Travolta in it up in the middle of your battlefield. But anyway, because there's so many pointing fingers and closed fists in the Primaris range, it would be super easy for you to like point one finger the other way and have the other one down. It would be amazing.
Way to ruin it for me because now I see it.
You're welcome. But it is.
You could definitely do that. It's but
I would never really do that to that model. But
it's just really cool that they're introducing new characters in this way. Because let's face it, like 40K like character progression has been very stale for a long time. So really, really happy to see it come this way.
But what this also tells me is that just like the Chaos Marines got a revised book, you're going to probably see a revised Space Marine book too that has these new entries in it. So that's on the horizon. I would anticipate. So
yeah, and hopefully the rumor engine or the hot button right now is getting vehicles with chapter tactics because they're the only one that doesn't have that. So
well, and they didn't do it for the Chaos book either. So I don't know that I would anticipate that change because they're trying to keep those two a little bit more aligned with each other, but still have their differences. So I could totally see them not giving it widespread to vehicles, but what they did do, and I will kind of touch on this briefly since we're on this topic, is one of the things that they did do in the FAQ is they changed the wording on some of the Legion traits to where it does not have to be infantry for a character. It can just be a character. So that means that Mr. Spiderlegs, the new Lord Discordant, can now benefit from Legion traits, which is just a huge benefit for him. Whereas previously, like, it would have been limited to the demon princes and all the infantry characters. Like, even if you were on a bike, you lost your you lost your Legion trait. Well, actually, no, not for the bikers. I'll take that back. But characters, Hellbrutes, infantry, and bikers all gain the Legion trait. So they changed that. So if there's something that's not considered infantry for the Space Marines, then that would be like if there's a character that's in a vehicle, then that vehicle would then get Legion traits. So like Samael in his land speeder essentially could get a Legion trait if they make that a broad change.
Yeah.
So that's just something to consider, because that might be something that they'll tweak. But I don't know that they'll broadly apply it to all vehicles, because I think the only ones that really get that are like, well, pretty much all the other books that aren't Space Marines get that, but Space Marines get other things now, like they get the bolter drill and some other stuff too that widely affects them. So that's just my opinion, though.
Well, good. I mean, that's the Australian preview.
Well, but that's not all, because this coming weekend.
Oh no, we get more?
Warhammer Fest is coming.
Yeah.
And Warhammer Fest, there are 5 previews, one for each system. So I would expect a lot of information coming in this weekend, which is May 11th and 12th, Mother's Day weekend. So thank you, Mama, and check Warhammer Community.
Yep.
So 5 systems, that includes Underworlds, right?
Includes Underworlds, I think.
Yeah.
I don't
know.
I don't know. It'll be an exciting weekend to see what else is coming out.
Well, I know that there is a kind of a preview up of what they're gonna kind of look at.
A preview of the preview?
A preview of the agenda.
Ooh, fancy.
Which, it's here somewhere. Hold on one second. And I'll kind of walk through it really quick. One moment, folks.
Radio silence. Can I get that transport?
Yep, it's great radio.
Yep, it is.
Denied.
Jam-packed schedule.
Denied. Request denied.
Okay, so the seminar schedule, Saturday, May 19th, May 11th, 2019. At 11 a.m., we will have the Warhammer 40K preview. At 1 p.m., we will have the Necromunda preview. At 2 p.m., we'll have the Warhammer Age of Sigmar preview. At 3 p.m., we'll have the Middle-earth preview. And then 2 p.m., we'll have the Horus Heresy preview on the 12th. So you'll probably see some of the Warhammer Underworld stuff kind of tucked into the Age of Sigmar Age of Sigmar stuff. If there is anything new, I'm sure that they'll speak something about
Dreadfane?
The Dreadfane box and kind of what it's going to entail. But I'm sure that will be a very small part of that, because there's so much new stuff coming out for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So, but either way, we're going to get a lot of really cool information, because this is like the pinnacle of the GW previews. Like all the seminars that they do at all the other conventions in the States and overseas, those are kind of babies compared to this one, because this is their event. This is their show. This is where they do Golden Demon. This is where they do all this other cool stuff. So I am sure that we'll see some fantastic stuff come out of this thing. So
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Exciting. Yep.
But I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. And we will be back in just a few minutes to wrap the show up.
Welcome back. Yeah, that's it for episode 6. Our Danny Lies Over the Ocean. Just want to say thanks for listening.
It was another
another long one.
Sorry.
Danny should be back on the next one, and I think we've got some good stuff in store. We've been kind of holding out because we want to get Danny in. We're going to talk about Vigilus Ablaze, and we'll get caught up on where everybody is with their Nova progress. So we're excited to get that out to you guys, and we'll continue to do some cracked glass, but it'll probably be a little more reined in the future. If you like what we're doing and you want to share get our content out, some of the best way to do that is to leave us reviews on Facebook and iTunes. So facebook.com/Battle Mallet Podcast. Find Battle Mallet Podcast on iTunes. Leave us a review. And tell us what we're doing well. If you think we could be doing something better, or there's something that we're not doing that you'd like to see, please give us feedback as well. Send us a message on the Facebook page. Find us in Discord. So I'll put a link. We've got a Discord server set up. We've been slacking a little bit in the hobby hangout of late, but we're going to try and get back in that. We've all got different painting and hobby goals to get done before we go to Nova. So come find us in there. We love to talk shop. If you're playing Underworlds and you want to talk about your deck or ask us what we're doing, we're happy to do that there. We're Battle Mallet PCast on Instagram, Battle Mallet 1 on Twitter. I think that covers all of the social media. So that'll round us out. Anybody got anything closing, anything pressing? One thing that we have not mentioned yet this show, SoCal Open. So I think that they're trying to get like an official Grand Clash. So they got to get the numbers. I think it's the last weekend in October. We'll get some more information. They're trying to get a Grand Clash for Underworlds. So we'll get some more information. I'll put a link in the show notes. And maybe we'll try to get the guy that's organizing it, try to get an interview with him, so you guys know, those of you that are either on the West Coast or can get to the West Coast for the end of October, maybe check that out. I've heard great things about the SoCal Open for other games as well, so it's a huge event. It's FLG guys, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is officially Grand Clash.
It's officially a Grand Clash. Okay,
Yep.
So they're just trying to get the numbers up for it.
Get the numbers to support it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's awesome. So it'd be the big shade glass trophy, all the
special swag,
all the accolades and honor. So I think I'm not going to ask you guys if you have any closing thoughts because we've gone on long enough. So for the Battle Mallet Podcast, we are 3 dads and a Lego painter. This is Jared signing out.
This is Trace signing out.
And this is Jason Table New Murray signing out, and peace.
The Battle Mallet Podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. This episode of the Battle Mallet Podcast was produced by me, Jared Johnson. Music by Anno Domini Beats. Dad, I gotta poop. But at least he's waking me up.
Ma, bathroom!
Yeah.